Some people don't consider autism, high spectrum, ADHD, to be a handicap. I try to not think of it that way either. But when you burned enough meals that you don't dare walk away from the fire or the stove to go get your phone or set the timer on the phone upstairs enough times, and you have smoke in the air, and you realize when you smell it upstairs, oh shit, I forgot again. It's particularly difficult as you get older, it appears, but more so even when you get under heavy stress. Now, I would have never ever guessed I'd get to be 70 years old, but I did. And one of the things I'm finding out is that a lot of 70-year-olds, people take advantage of them. And 75-year-olds and 80-year-olds. They tend to want to go ahead and use them financially, abuse them financially. And I don't just mean anybody, I mean banks. I mean lawyers, liars, in front of the judge, who do not have to swear to tell the truth to speak, like you or I. Not just the eyes you see, the two in my head. I. Not the I that refers to the me, you see, because the me is not M-E. The me, as I butter my bread with ghee, G-H-E-E, ghee. Best thing you put in your body instead of butter. Did you know that? I eat a lot of ghee. It's got a lot of nice healthy fats in it. This is an example. We get this. It's going to have possibly import tax. Amul, pure ghee. I don't care what it costs. It comes from India, where they make ghee out of buffalo milk. They make ghee out of cow milk, water buffalo milk. This is like crazy that America doesn't use these things to stay healthy. Now, right now, my weight is down dramatically, actually, about 10 pounds, 15 pounds where I'd like it to be. But I've been going through 10 years of very stressful shit. Chased by predator lender. What's a predator lender? Well, we'll go into that someday. For the moment, I'm trying to show everybody how to make my breakfast. It's only taken me 3 videos so far. I know this is backwards. It says, welcome to my shit show, but I won't get in trouble this way because you're looking at it backwards. Now, I also use organic peanut butter. I've been putting this in here as I go along and showing you these labels. They're all ass backwards because you're looking at the screen from the ass backwards side. Because this is really, nobody gets to watch my stuff. As a poster child for shadow banning, back in the days when I was quite popular with all the magazines that were making fun and pointing out the top 10 houses, tiny Texas houses, was 3 of the top 10 tiny houses in the days that were pioneering the concept of getting off-grid with tiny houses instead of building gigantic mansions everywhere full of toxic materials. Guess what? All the rich people are now having respiratory problems. They're having immune system disorders. They thought they were rich. Rich is health. Rich is a physical condition. Now, I don't have enough. I'm old. I don't have a thick layer of fat. But I also eat well. Why? Because honor thy vessel. Honor thy vessel. Now, when I was young, the Chippendales, remember those? Well, the idea is you should be able to control all your muscles. One, other one. Do women do this? Yeah. So the idea is you should have control. Yeah, and if you wanted to, be able to go ahead and use your muscles very much. At this age, at 70. Why? Because I had a broken back as a child. I had scoliosis. You don't believe it? You can still see it. I also have deformations in my rib cage. I had connective tissue disorder. I was legally blind by 7 years old. 8 years old, I couldn't even read the big E on the chart on the wall when you go to the eye doctor. I had 4 eyes. That's what they call me, 4-eyed kraut when I got back to America from Germany. I was a 4-eyed kraut. In Michigan, that wasn't very popular because a lot of our guys died in the war because we were all veterans. My family, my uncle Jack, everybody went and fought the Germans. So coming back from being born in Germany, even though I was American, and my dad was American Army, I was seated in the United States in the backseat of a car and flown over to Germany to be born. Why? Would you believe? Because that's the way reincarnation works. You pick your parents, so that you end up being born where you need to be born, so that you can be reincarnated again, to continue the battle. What's the battle? What is the battle? Honestly, it is one of will and good against evil. And we, W-I-I, part of the book of Wibblry and Web, which is a wake-up call book. These are the keys, key words, for when the time was right to understand what an avatar is, what a holographic world is. Because if you can't understand the concept without movies like Matrix to wake you up, you think it's all real. It ain't. Otherwise, how did this crippled boy get to be 70 years old? In the best condition I've ever been in my life. Because I saw a man, 118 years old, performing in the 2012 Qigong International Convention with his 113-year-old girlfriend following him, doing flawless routines. She did the sword routine, which I watched him do the same year, flawlessly. Rolling, tumbling, swinging those two swords, and I was in awe. I was humbled, and I started to study and learn and become meek instead of the proud son of a bitch I was in my 30s, in my 40s, and into my 50s when I was struck by prophecy. My son passing away in Paris, France. Unable to stop it. Denying foolishly that God could tell me the future in advance, where my son would die and how. And it told me from birth, but you don't remember the mission, you don't remember the assignment when you come into it. You remember the plan, but you got to get older. What's older? Men don't reach our peak and mature until 66 to 78. We finally figure it out a little bit. Now, understand. You can't do this if you drink alcohol, inflame your brain, and increase your chances of cancer by 45% or dementia and die because you had to drink every day. Morning, noon, and night in some cases. You can't do this if you just drug yourself all your life. It's not that you can't do drugs, but you shouldn't. Honor thy vessel. Now, I had to go through all these things in order to learn this. Why? I chose to. I had to train. And how do you train? When you're reincarnated, you experience. Literally. Life is experience. Experience. Education. Constantly asking questions, constantly learning. Dabrowski has an incredible concept called positive disintegration. You continually reassess yourself. This is the karmic version of your chakras. You critically reassess yourself from this view to articulate it, from this view to intellectualize it. You start off every time, every view, from the loins, it seems, in 7-year cycles. And then into your appetites, your ability to focus, your ability to feel, and the power of love. The ability to articulate it, intellectualize it, and eventually spiritualize it. But how long before you get to actually remember why you came? Why did I have that body so I could make this one happen? This wasn't what it came with. Never in my life did I have this. Now, I don't know for sure if you'll be able to hear this or anything. I'm just doing this spontaneously because that's what ADHD people do. And that's why I gotta find my honey. And that's why I'm trying to go ahead and share with others as best I can without scripting, obviously, without having grand producers, because nobody would do my shit, because I've been pretty hard to get along with because I can't seem to communicate without telling the truth all the time. And the truth sometimes is if I'm near somebody and they're going to die of diabetes if they don't change their ways, I can't not say that in some way, form, or shape because they may not be aware. Now, there's another thing called Bakhtinian dialogism. Have you ever heard of that? Mr. Bakhtin was around in the days of Stalin, dastardly guy, who used techniques of torture and terror to deprogram and just slaughter people. Now, he did this because of Pavlov. Remember the guy named Pavlov in psychology who studied that trained the dogs to salivate at the and control them by how he fed them and trained them. So they would salivate before they ever got the food because of random. He'd make a noise and he'd give them food. He'd make a noise and give them food. He'd make a noise and not give them food. Make a noise, not give them food, but they salivate as if they're going to get the food anyway. That was amazing. You think. In psychology, I learned that. I studied sociology a long time ago. Why? Well, when I was going to college, there was cults. You go into an airport in those days, it was Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. I actually listened to him, and that means God, in different words. Hare, God. Krishna, Hare Hare. And so you say that enough times, you start getting mixed up. And next thing you know, you're going along with them because you're just like giddy. You know, they're really wonderful people. They're touching you. Because, why? Because that gets the oxytocin going in your body. Oxytocin, Oxycontin. These are things that come naturally, similar by nature. And so next thing you know, because somebody's actually touching you in a positive manner. I mean, they literally do love you. Because they've been taught to love you or teach you to love them. More importantly, next thing you know, your children in those days was off and gone. Instead of going to college, snagged in other things. Guess what was right outside the door of every college, including in Austin for many years when I got there? The Church of Scientology, created by Mr. Hubbard, who was a wonderful fiction writer. And he said before he ever started Scientology, that if a man wanted to be ultra rich, he would simply start a religion. And he did. Sadly, I watched it grow. Yeah. I was in Clearwater, Florida when they took over Clearwater, Florida in the old days. And they just set everybody up, honeypots, got the council members and everybody all tied up and shit. And I worked at a little restaurant outside of the center where people came from all over the world. Girls, women, men, to go ahead and be enlightened through Scientology. I worked at Talk of the Town, I believe it was called, and I was a waiter. But I was a waiter in a bar where the women were the object the customers were trying to attract. And we were allowed to go ahead and dance with them, kiss them, touch them. And the head waiter would go into the women's restroom and lock the door and get head. Literally. That's what we were supposed to do as male waiters. Exclusively. No females. And in those days, the Chippendales were around. And other things like that. Now, I was a young man with no morals to speak of. I must say, I wasn't brought up by people with morals, so I didn't have any. And so I thought it was pretty cool. Now, the other thing about it was, I learned to spin trays, the waiters spinning trays and all that good shit. That was all part of the show. And if your tables were taken care of, we're allowed to dance with the women, which we got to do. I enjoyed that part. But Scientology was right up the block. So guess who our customers were? Women from around the world. Coming to the male strip bar. Male. What did we call it? What? Talk of the Town. Anyway, the thing I learned was watching Clearwater, Florida be taken over by these very evil entities that operate under the auspices of being a church. It's a cult. So it was, oddly enough, in my life, I've run across some very evil entities, but old good things. As Jerry Seinfeld made fun of them years ago, there basically was a cult that all the people that came into the cult and lived in the dormitories and were fed, worked and paid for it and worked their way to heaven, sort of thing. And the problem was IRS didn't agree with that, so they had to start paying the people. And in the process of paying the people, that way IRS collected taxes, and they were allowed to donate all their money back into the organization. It worked out very well for the organization. And if you try to compete with them on, for example, a building you want to go ahead and salvage, and I was in the salvage business by then, later on, 50s, 40s. I mean, my 40s and 50s. And you would have to bid against them, but they would go in there and say, hey, if you donate this to the church, then you would get $100,000 of value. On the other hand, if you sold it to Brad Cattell or Discovery Architectural Antiques for salvage, you might get $5,000. Which one do you want to do? Well, of course, they're going to say, I'll take your $100,000 here, donate it. Okay, so those guys send in their team of free workers, take things down, move them all around the country and sell them in every flea market in the United States. What's that mean? If you walk around, you'll see those people reading their Bibles and putting all this stuff out and selling it in Chicago, in San Francisco, in New York, in every big market in the country, because that's what the people do. And they send all the money back and they get the private jets down to the orphanages and things that they have offshore. So, all these organizations that pretend to be religions are typically using the people's souls. Well, it's like employees. I don't ever want to have an employee again. I'm done being a merchant and having employees because you pay the government taxes to go ahead and rent them to use them to do work so that you can pay taxes as an employer on your profits that are ridiculous and make it almost prohibitive to go into business for yourself anymore. So the idea is, how do you justify using people? And you have to pay them more, and you have to pay them more, and suddenly $25, $30 an hour. What happened to the value of the dollar? Why are we paying people $30 an hour? Because the dollar's not worth what it was. When I got out of high school, I was paid $2 an hour. Two. I made $80 a week. But my rent on my one-bedroom apartment in Dothan, Alabama, was $80 a month. Imagine that. Now, you could also buy a car. I mean, like a sports car, Datsun, For how much? Would you believe? $1,500? Yeah, you buy a house, incredible house. In 1963, for $25,000, you buy a mansion. $25,000. 73, not so much. 83, never, ever. 93. When I got to Austin in 84, I bought houses for 20, 30, 40 houses I fixed up in East Austin that were crack houses or boarded up. They were abandoned, not livable. Prostitutes were operating out of them. Drug dealers were dealing out of them. People were shooting up in them. That was East Austin in 1984. I could buy a house for $7,500. Bought a whole block of 5 houses for $7,500 and 2 for $10,500. All but 2 boarded up. One of them had a little old lady living in it. A really sweet little old lady, black lady. And nobody touched her in a neighborhood where everybody was dealing across the street in the park at the corner. And the kids across the street, I worked several of them over the years, but they had not had a real job in 4 generations. Of course, their generations came fairly fast because they got pregnant at 15, 14. But I was the first one to employ any of them, which was difficult because they had no work ethos. In fact, they're the ones that actually broke into the houses I had them work on when the first tenants moved into them because they knew the weak spots, how to do it. That's my dog drinking. He's not conscious of the fact that we're filming right now. Most people aren't. You won't get to see this. Years ago, I was shadow banned, ghosted, never monetized. After I did Tiny Texas Houses, after I stood behind the inside job conspiracy, the conspiracy I stood up against since Oswald in the early days, when I came back at 13 years old from Germany with expert marksman's medals from having shooting practice every Saturday, 50 rounds for free by the U.S. Army. My dad was U.S. Army. In Germany, on an army post, you wanted the kids able to shoot weapons accurately. So before the theater on Saturday mornings, we would go 7 o'clock in the morning and be there in the shooting range below the theater on the base. And we were provided 50 rounds. That's 50 rounds of ammunition and a .22 rifle, just like an M1, but a smaller version. Just the caliber's different, that's all it is. Same rifle, smaller barrel, smaller ammunition, cheaper to practice with, but the same gun in a 13-year-old's hands. But give him a high caliber, and he's going to toast his targets, which I proved when I joined the Army during Vietnam. It was difficult to get people to join at the end of it. The draft just barely ended my senior year. And so, because I was an Army boy, brought up Army, and I swore I'd never go into the Army. But at the end of every war is a recession, and we were ending the war, and the recession had begun. So I joined in 73 on a very unique enlistment, 2-year enlistment, 2 years active, 2 years inactive, active reserve, and then 2 years inactive at all. And so a 6-year enlistment means you give your body to the government for 6 years. If you become an officer, you give your body to the government for life. I didn't get to be an officer because I never went to college before I joined. My dad was a warrant officer. He started at the bottom of the ranks, private, worked his way up into the highest rank he could get to without becoming officially an officer. He was in the middle. He was called Mr. Cattell, not captain, colonel, sergeant. The unique title of Mr. only goes to warrant officers who flew helicopters, particularly in Vietnam. Chief Warrant Officer 4 was as high as you could get to, but that was like being a top-ranking colonel or even above. So my dad ended up getting rifted after the end of the war because they needed to downsize the Army. And my mother had written a false letter one time when I was record saying he was not paying his child support. He went to court. I saw it. I sat in the seats as the judge said, "These are all the canceled checks. You didn't do anything wrong." He had to come from Alabama to Michigan to prove the case that he paid his child support. So my mother could get over her being a bitch because he'd gone and got remarried after she'd been unfaithful for many, many years. He joined the army single, got married because of me. She sent him back to Vietnam the second time so she'd come back from Germany 1 month early. 1 month before he was going to rotate back to the United States instead of have to go to Vietnam. But to get her back early, he had to volunteer. So the second time he went to Vietnam, he went back mad. Rightfully so. Because her boyfriend in Germany was also in the army and he was about to get out. So she had us come back to Michigan. No. War kills everything, including love. But my dad joined the army to kill people. He wanted to. He grew up abused in Michigan. But my grandmothers, the grandmothers on some sides, came from Germany. So, for our heritage, the Goodwill family, to be real, I had to be born in Germany again, where the last version of me was evidently eliminated so that they could continue forward with the plan. Thinking, of course, they get rid of us, but knowing on their side, they didn't get rid of us. They just gave us a chance to come back and train. What do I mean by train? Prepare. We, the indigo, the ones who dropped in the 50s, preparing for the ones who dropped in their 60s to be readied. So the ones, this whole process began. The Light Brigade was trained, ready, able to remember if they survived. Yeah. Because being a brigadier for God, the light within, as the Essenes would say, as Jesus, Church of Nazarene, and the Essenes, it is our light within. He said, don't look to me to do what you can do. When he raised Lazarus, he said, I did not do anything you can't do. Pray, use your energy, your light, join together, honor thy vessel. And if you truly believe, and he didn't cure everybody that stood in line. No. People came in numbers to be cured. The lesson is you can't cure somebody of karma they have to personally experience to learn from. You have to let them learn, and that's the hard part. When you find out you can cure people, who do you cure? And if you don't cure the right people, they hate you. Why didn't you cure me? I'm special. Well, that's why you have these special diseases and problems, because you are special. You don't treat yourself special. You got to honor thy vessel, or thy vessel will give out on you. It's a biological computer operating at phenomenal speeds that lets you go ahead and do. You can do this. Keep your fast twitch neurons. That's what this was about. You get people that show you, that try to tell you this. Who listens? Well, first you got to see it. And you can't see my stuff anymore. Again. Who controls the internet? Who controls a Ouija board? How does a Ouija board work? How does the internet work? Now, one of the words in Wibblry, the language you're not allowed to see, about me, M-I-I, me, we, all the eyes that see what's going on. Believe it or not, this is 29 minutes into it. For the average human being, I'm way past their ability to understand, comprehend the words I've used, beyond their ability to perceive with the eyes or the ears. That's the problem. We have this thing, a word I didn't learn until my 60s, perspicuity. It depends on your capacity. Your perspicuity is your acuity of your perspective. Your perspective. You perceive. How do you perceive things? If I'm perceiving things from my loins, my sex drive being my priority, that's a misperception problem. Most things, when you learn to focus, feel with your heart. Your eyes can be fooled. Your ears can be fooled. Your taste buds. We know we can fool them. We feed you chemicals all the time in our system to go ahead and make you think the sweetness or the flavor of something is anything other than chemicals that are not good for you. Now, we can inject you with things. We can offer you up all sorts of things to cure yourself with. That's loud. We, I say, not the W-I-I, the W-E. W-E is a we that means the corporation. It's we that's the organizations, the religions that are working against you. We, all the eyes that see clearly, with perspicuity, logic, analytical thinking based on parameters that far exceed what I learned in school, when there was nothing smaller than an electron and a proton and a neutron. And when I was going to school, there was such bullshit. And I would say that, and they would go, huh? You're a dumb kid. What are you talking about? And I said, that's bullshit. And they go, good thing I moved on. I went to 13 different schools. Well, I changed schools 13 times. Actually moved 17 times before I got out of high school. And that includes South America, Germany, back to America, Germany, back to America. And then I joined the Army and went back to Germany because Vietnam was just close enough to the end that I went into crypto computing, and it took me a whole year to get through learning how to make our words go encrypted from one spot to another so we could tell the missile bases, where I also worked at, to go ahead and launch if you needed to. But it had to be in the code because otherwise somebody could just send out a fake message. Hey, launch! Hit Russia! No, it had to be encrypted. So I worked on the first cryptography computers. Like I said, crypto coins and all the stuff that evolved out of that. When we had 220 volt machines. Only they got electrocuted, forgot to unplug the machine, we went to work on file cabinet size. And then I also worked on the newest version, which was 45 pounds, 52 pounds total, of a black box that no longer had tubes or obvious transistors and resistors. It had modules. It was the first modular computer ever used by the U.S. military for encryption. And I was one of the first few to come out of Fort Monmouth, the school. High, top secret, of course. Yeah. And in fact, they had steel on the windows so you couldn't see through. They had music playing outside the building all the time. And to get into the classroom, you had to hold your ID at the bottom of your chin and read off your social security number for the guard to let you into the big locked door, safe style, to come out for lunch and to get back in to classes at the end. That was the last class to go through Fort Monmouth, New Jersey in 1974. Somewhere during that period of time, if anybody knew of that place, there was also a girl stationed there, a young lady. And unfortunately, I was a dumbass, and she was not. In the process of our relationship, she got impregnated on her very first time as a virgin with me in New York City. We went up there to visit and ended up having intimacy. And she was smart enough to know not to want to marry me. And unfortunately, I lost all connection with people. Lost my little black book in the days when we didn't have computers and all this stuff to remember with. And having moved on my life, I lost my connection with everybody I knew. In a day when you couldn't just pick up a phone from Germany and find everybody. And I lost contact with that child. One of my great regrets in life, I could never track her down. Women, when they got married in those days, changed their name. Unless you could afford to hire a detective, you couldn't find them. So nowadays we have all these means of checking out. But I don't know if anybody's... I know she died. Another mother of a child that might have been mine passed away. And she gave that child away to another man, under the auspices that it was his child, apparently. That happened after I went in the Army, after I went to Germany. As a young man, lots of things happen. Not 70, I have a different view of the world. Far different. That's what wisdom is. It's experience, knowledge, assuming you're learning the right things. And I study every day. I learn things I never imagined were possible. I studied all my life. That's the thing about being high level spectrum autistic. You can't talk with people very well, but you can sure do a lot of other things with an intensity they can't even begin to imagine. Watch Darby Goes In, S-A-N-Y, Saney. Darby Goes Insane on YouTube. You can see how 3,400 hours in a cab can be done in less than 3 years. That's 8 years of 40-hour weeks in heavy equipment on the meters, plus the fueling and the greasing, all done by a hyperactive, attention deficit, autistic person. Nobody ever tagged me when I was a kid. Nobody ever counseled me. Nobody ever gave me any counseling in school. I was told to graduate high school in my family, and that was my commitment. 4 days later, I got on my 10-speed with $4 in my pocket, clothes on my back, and left home. Never went back. My dad was a very strict man. His second wife, a psychopath. But after Vietnam, I think my dad was pretty messed up. 26 years later, he finally left and agreed she was a psychopath. But in the meantime, my family never got together much. In 55 years, I didn't spend, a week in the company of my mother or my father, along with my brother and sister, together. After 16, we rarely have seen each other. That's what it means to be an army brat. War kills families. War kills people in the battlefield, but when they come home, the ones that survive, their families are often destroyed. 6 out of 10 women that live on the streets are veterans who are destroyed, families destroyed. Suicide rates at 1 soldier per hour are insane. But I understand. The thing is, suicide is dangerous, but it's also a door out. It isn't a bad door out, it is a door out. And I tried to take it, trust me, when I was young. I was crippled. I was being bullied, picked on, beaten. Turn the other cheek, they'll hit that one too. I have an eye socket that has a break in it. I've been there a long time. They hate boys with glasses on too. I want to tell you kids that want to commit suicide, the rate is going up radically fast. Honor thy vessel, learn to eat right, take care of it, exercise, and don't smoke pot early. Don't smoke marijuana early. Don't do all the drugs early. Your brain is still forming. Let it form to your 21. Suffer through the trials you came here to experience so you can win, to become something. I'm finishing a book that I started a very long time ago. When I was a child, I said I'm going to grow up to be a writer one day. I knew that all the time. Told people that. They said, oh, you should be a philosopher when you grow up. I was like, what's a philosopher? I want to be a writer. So, I thought I was going to do that after high school. I thought I was going to do that after college. I even made a bus into a home and went off on the road to write the great American novel, only to live it instead, because I did not understand it. 21 years old or 25 years old. You can't be a good writer until you experience pain. Love. The loss of love. You can't go through life with armor on and become a writer. Because you have to feel, you have to experience, you have to understand the people, the characters. To this day, I could not create the characters. factors that I've had to contend with in life to learn what it took to finally become what I believe will be a good writer. I've said this. I've lived it. I swear by it. And I hope by some means or effort, despite all odds, I'll complete my mission. I'll create, as I have, an embassy for what is possible. How do you salvage the best of your life? Your home, your family? How do you salvage the spiritual entity within you that's been beaten? By awakening to your faith within. Don't follow the lights outside. They're a distraction. Don't follow the lights ahead. It's a distraction. You have to have faith, not belief. You have to have faith to the point that you're willing to go ahead and roll the dice. Give everything up. Fight the battles. Win by faith. Because at the last minute, when you think, I could lose, I'd rather die than lose. Well, no. You can't lose. If you have faith, you give it everything you got. If nothing else, once you're gone, others will learn. Maybe then they'll listen. Then they'll read. Perhaps they'll understand. And if you can put it into a book, it's very difficult to stop them. Because I can be erased, ghosted, shadow banned. If you don't believe it, try to find me on Facebook anymore. Brad W. Cattell. Erased. I still have Tiny Texas Houses. I can't access it. I still have Pure Savage Living. Can't access it. Darby Lettick. DARBYLETTIK. The spokesman. Darby Lettick, the main character in the book of Wibblry and Wub. Nobody's read it much because it's on Substack. Again, another platform that censors. Another platform that fails to send out to your subscribers. And they simply fall off. There are very few platforms left. These are platforms. They are paths to get information from this body to your body. It's called Webbling. Webbling is going on the web. And you know the web goes all sorts of places besides what you know about. It processes through a number of filters. And do you ever wonder how my voice can go live around the world faster than almost the speed of light? Despite it's going through all sorts of switching mechanisms, satellites, everything has a delay if you think about time and the time it takes for these frequencies to fly around the world. Unless you get into this other level of quantum. There's energies that we have hidden from us from back in the 1800s, back before. Crystal, frequency, light. You can transmit light with your eyes through the DHA, underlying the DNA of all living creatures, is a means of transforming energy into light and light into energy. You don't believe it? Let us sit one time and take a breath and separate the BZ water in a cloud, turn it to vapor again, with nothing but our eyes, our thoughts, our breath, our hands draw the energy in, transmit the energy out. From the ground through us, we are a circuit breaker. connecting the air to the earth through us. A saltwater-filled gelatinous shell that generates fuel out of UV, infrared light, and other forms of energy traveling at amazing speeds and efficiency if you learn how to use them, how to breathe. Nitric acid in through the nose. Exhale. And when you do these perturbations in this field of energy that carry the sound waves, that's affected too. That's why the word and the pause. The ability to exhale and remain exhaled for 20, 30 heartbeats without tensing up. To gradually draw the air in through your belly, your chest, the nitric acid filling your brain. Many benefits. And if you hum and cause the nasal passages to vibrate, you will produce stem cells in the back of them, which can be redirected into any part of your body you need once you learn how to use your placebo powers to funnel these powerful tools, stem cells, and mitochondria running through your body to go ahead and to rebuild, to do something called youthing. It makes it possible that 70 years old, I'm in the best condition I've ever been in. All my indicators are actually excellent. On the weight scale, I showed 60 years old with a fitness of 80 and 123 pounds of muscle, which I need more muscle. I need more fat. I have a 20 BMI. I can drop down and do fingertip push-ups. I can Chinese plank style, not side by side. Lay down on the belly, stretch out, and then do your push-ups on your fingertips. That's a Chinese plank push-up. I can drop down and do the splits. If you decided I was going to do this shit at 55, I'd have said, whatever drug you're on, it must be so good because you're tripping. And yet, when I saw that 118-year-old man and his 113-year-old girlfriend do their routine, I went, how do you do that? And I heard about youthing, and 160,000 people had successfully reduced the effective age by decades by going off into the mountains and fasting and learning to breathe and do movements. And I said, teach me. And I said about teaching me, M-I-I. The eye you see, the eyes that I now see with thanks to having my cataracts fixed when I was dead blind at the end. I couldn't even drive test. Passed the driver's test. My one eye was just, with the glasses on, too blind. And I was going to lose the other eye soon. So I finally resorted to having surgery and having my lenses replaced. And for the first time in my life since 7 years old, seeing without glasses and also without UV protection, and also able to then learn how to use these to project photons, information-filled, intention-filled energy generated out of the DHA in your body naturally. One of our superpowers, the placebo effect, youthing. Honor thy vessel. I'm 50 minutes into this. Welcome to my shit show, it says if you read it backwards. Again, I started off to make my sandwich using my eggs. I made a couple videos. My ADHD, I ran off. I shouldn't have. That's how I burn all my meals. Yeah, so I've been humbled. I used to think I was pretty damn close to shooting for perfect, understanding all things, being smart in the world I thought was real. Denying, of course, often that doesn't make sense. That doesn't match. Being a rebel, being a conspiracy theorist, making a lot of people pretty mad because I didn't agree with them. And I said so. I tried to explain. And I won a lot of arguments, but unfortunately I was wrong. I didn't learn that until later. And I learned I was wrong again. I learned I actually had very few of the things I thought that were true turned out to be true. At 55, I changed directions. At 63, I had rebuilt my body. It wasn't over. I was still in battle with evil entities from the past life. Still am. You may have heard me speak of them. Swindlers. The world is full of swindlers and thieves and liars. Friends, family, entities brought into this exercise, mortality, spirit and body, me, both of us that you're looking at, two eyes. But these two lobes of the brain, two halves of the body, masculine and feminine, artist, warrior. The whole saying, a Buddha mind, demon hand. What did that mean? Even after Buddha had a period of enlightenment, he drew the sword of a soldier and killed the general standing next to him, rather than watch that general slaughter 250,000 peasants, helpless Chinese women and children. The emperor did not punish Buddha for it. People don't hear stories like that. They don't hear about the Chinese Navy going around the world in 1280 and running into the comet in the ocean that changed our world. It caused a tsunami so great that it lifted their ship 12 times the size of Christopher Columbus's on top of an island 75 miles from where it started from, burning off the sailors on the high, tall masts as the comet came in and hit the water. When the admiral finally got back to China and told the emperor the world was in chaos, famine, and the emperor buried the story, and the admiral went into obscurity, but records survived. Eventually, people understand the 7 pearls, the harbors, allowed them to drop off seeds on the west coast of America. They were on the east coast of America in time for the people from Europe to arrive to Jamestown and utilize all the corn, the maize, and the things that the Chinese had brought. There are other places around the world. So much to learn. So much mistold to us. You need to watch didactically, of course. Didactic, autodidactic. It means automatically continue to learn, to expand your mind, to understand what Bakhtinian dialogism is about. Bakhtinian dialogism, or positive disintegration, or individualization. Individualization, Carl Jung. Positive disintegration, Dabrowski. How do you expand your genius into multiple fields and destroy that is bad? Bakhtin, about how do you communicate with one mere utterance in such a way as to change the course of another man's lifetime. And of course, let's go back to Yahweh, known as Jesus, Yahweh, leader of the Church of Nazarene, and Essene, one of the 5 original Jewish tribes. And they believed very much in the Gnostic, the life from within, the moving from physical into light being and back into physical, reincarnation. This process that I speak of, I'm not alone. As a minister for God and bringing this message in this form this time around, it's time for us, humanity, human beings. We, WII, have a chance to become part of the intercosmic world union of beings, a society. There are others here with us. We're not alone. We've never been alone. There's colonies under the oceans, mile-wide colonies moving across the bottom. We've known this since the satellite days. We've seen the tracks. There's cities in mountains. There's cities under the ground. We've coexisted with other beings since we've even understood we exist. We just didn't understand we were being controlled by them as well. Now, there's names for these entities, because some are good, some are bad. Reptilians. There's all these different entities, including archons in another dimension entirely that will take over a human being and make them the source of anger, fear, fuel for them. They love it. But love, sovereignty, the ability to abstract, visualize, and take this energy and project it in such a way as alter reality in ways that people think are impossible. And if you don't believe it, please, despite no one ever getting to see most of what I've created in order to prove this possible, I highly recommend, for your entertainment, of course, and nothing more, perhaps enlightenment, which means from the inside you light up, ignite, understand as you're reaching this new point. The planets are aligned. It took me my lifetime to understand the Vedic horoscope and why I was born, where I was born, by who I was born. And as the planets come back into my signs, Mercury in retrograde, one of my big deals. Oh my goodness. We never know what we don't know. Here's my brother, who's a Jehovah's Witness, if it's his choice. But he brought to me something I never understood. The meek shall inherit the world, and I thought the word was the weak shall inherit the world, because I only understood meek as weak, because as a child, I wanted to learn, I wanted to experience, I wanted to communicate. I wanted to know because I knew what I was being told was wrong. I was willing to question everything. And what I learned ultimately by doing that was you will be ostracized. You will be cast away by others who do not want to consider, do not want to question. And religions actually specifically deny you access to their flock if you will teach their flock how to question. So when I went to school in sociology to learn how to deprogram people, in English Lit, in American literature to find out how we were programmed in the first place, and through history, which his story does not accurately depict anything, is simply the official version of what happened, which is often hidden in the literature that was written during the times of such men as King James, who would slice off your hands and take your Gutenberg press away, so you could neither print more nor write, because the ability to read and write made you dangerous. So King James, first, when he wrote the book of demonology, I should say his staff, since he was only 10 years old, he was a king at one. But 10 years old, he wrote the book of demonology and went out and then actually watched over some of the early witch burnings in Ireland, Scotland, where England was notorious for wiping out the elders and those who had wisdom and knew how to use herbs and knew how to do cures, because others would accuse them of being witches and they would be burned or drowned. All the way to Jamestown, America, King James had power, because he wrote the King James version of the Bible, or he is claimed to have, at 12 years old, 2 years after the book of demonology, where he set off about the means and methods of destroying all the enemies who disagreed with the forthcoming New Testament, the King James version. Now, oddly enough, I didn't learn this till recently, but would you believe the Cattell name? I'm a Brad W. Cattell, also known as Darby Ledick. Why Brad Cattell backwards? Turns out one of my great ancestors, a Cattell, was actually the authority on the Biblica Helvetica Cattell. His versions were known around the world. And later on, during the time of the Nazis, during Hitler, another Cattell stood up and became the authority on the New Testament, despite being in Germany during those times. He said that the Jews brought this upon themselves. It was written. It was already pre-written. And he became the authority, and still is, and despite his being associated with the Nazis, because they were in power at the time, he managed to survive all that and write this. I also found out that the African Bible was translated by a Kittel. Crazy stuff. Never knew that. Oh, my chickens have worked their way in the back door. Oh boy. And yes, I know. In my house. If you told me this is going to happen, I'd have said never, ever. When I'm 70 years old, am I going to be doing a video that can be seen around the world about a book that I'm about to go ahead and publish, share, travel around the world and talk to y'all about tiny Texas houses, pure salvage living, and a book of Wibblry keys based on WUB, a WUB, W-U-B, a world union of beings, also means WUB, prana, energy, soul, chi, manifested in body, WIB, a WIB, the two base words. Very simple keys. Been around a long time. WIB, in capital letters, me, can then communicate, wibblize, with you through telepathy. I can wobble with you through touch. I can wibblize and create these videos and music, art, stories. They're creations. This energy soul embodied, WUB, energy soul in body, WIB. Wibblizing means to create things with this WIB, my body, in capital letters. That is a manifestation of WUB, energy soul, nothing more. Without me, my spirit, operating inside of this gelatinous shell, it won't look too good in about 24 hours. But as long as I'm inside, I think I look pretty good for 70 years old. Webbling, communicating through touch. I explored that in ways few humans could. I was a boy toy. I had no morals in particular. I wanted to communicate and find out, how do we communicate through touch? I found out you could be abused in many ways, and I've known many people, and I am an absolute advocate for those who are abused through touch. That means being beaten, used for sex, or any other form of abuse through touch. Touch, a hug, a kiss, holding somebody's hand, can heal them. Wibbling is thoughts, telepathy, mind to mind, to communicate energy soul from the body to another body through thought alone. And it's best to be done in pictures, like animals do. But the thing you have to understand is it can happen at speeds you can't begin to articulate when you start using pictures and emotions to communicate with. Inflections. That's wibbling. Now, webbling, going on the internet, communicating on the web, webbling, you can go anywhere. You don't even realize where you're going and who you're talking to. Are they real? In what dimension are they? What part of the universe are they? Because once you step into the astral level of working in the ether and taking this energy that you have within your grasp and using it and transmitting it through the web, then you become part of the intercosmic WUB society. That's right. If you believe you're a wubber, you exist out of energy of soul passing through your body, and you're one of the many who maybe have established wublock. That's not wedlock, like we distorted the term. Wub, energy of soul, locked together. Wublock. I can trust you. I can believe in you. If I'm protecting your back in war as a warrior, and you're at my back, you will be safe. I will die before I drop my sword. I will let you know I am falling. I will let you know I'm not abandoning you. I simply can't go on. That's Webbling. And when we meet again, in this life or the next, you'll know. You'll understand. Were we in battle last time? Or were we friends? When the time comes, you'll know. You'll understand. Because guess what? For some of us, as soon as you see me, as soon as I see you, and more importantly, as soon as we touch hands, we know, friend or foe. Protect yourself. Stay. Or go. But don't think for a minute you're going to take my sovereignty. We agree? Join me in the Light Brigade. Thank you.